Holy cow, I never thought I would do this. Hi, this is the Poetry Ninja, former president and founder of the Anime Club.
Hello guys, this is Shai Inuyasha. I am a former vice president of the MCTC Anime Club.
And I am Crimson Lord, former president of the Anime Club, now veteran.
And today we are going to be reviewing the film that we watched today, which is Studio Ghibli's The Cat Returns. Wow, what a fun film. I remember seeing it quite some time ago when I was actually a part of the club when it started up, and I loved it to pieces.
Yeah, this is my first time actually seeing this film. I have seen many Studio Ghibli films, and this has to be in my top 3 so far.
Yeah, it's also my first time seeing it, and I've been trying to watch some of the films that are from this company, but I gotta say, Cat Returns, it seems pretty good, especially on the comedic level. Plus, I loved all the cat references.
Yeah, I think that's one merit that I like about this film. We watched the English dub today, so keep that in mind when you are looking at how we reviewed this. But I love the voice cast that they chose for this film. Tim Curry is phenomenal as the villain. Carrie Elwes is great as the Baron, and of course Anne Hathaway and the late great Peter Boyle are even more memorable as well in this whole show. But I think overall the story of The Cat Returns is probably the most intriguing part about it. If you don't know about it, a girl rescues a cat who happens to be a prince to the Cat Kingdom. She is showered with gifts unimaginably until the point where she is given something that she just can't take. So she gets help from the Bureau, as they will put it. And as that happens, magical adventures ensue.
Absolutely, and I think the story is perfect for the script that the producers and the director have made. And like the Poetry Ninja said, they have picked an amazing cast for this film, especially with Tim Curry as the villain. Don't get me wrong, Tim Curry has done some little bit of protagonists as well, but I think he's more known for his villain roles that he has played in many of his productions, whether it's animated or real life movies.
Yes, he's deliciously devious whenever you hear his voice, and it goes without saying in this film as well. But yeah, the story it's simple, but it's very well done, and the cast kind of helps make it not just very more pleasant, but it also makes it humorous in nature as well.
Yeah, I gotta say, the story plot seems almost similar. At first, I think it's just gonna be, oh, a typical supernatural experience of a high school girl, but there's some factors where it kind of seems like it's out of a swashbuckling movie. Someone being forced to marry against their will, and there's this dashing debonair hero that comes in to help him.
Yeah, and I think that's the other cool thing about this, is that the characters in this film are really memorable. The Baron is, of course, as sorry, I keep forgetting because I don't come here very often. But as we had stated, the Baron is very much a swashbuckling do-gooder. The King is, you can tell he's quite evil, but you can also tell that he's entertaining at every chance that he's on the screen. And every other character, even the lesser characters that are a part of the kingdom and even a part of the town of Japan, are also memorable characters, even if they don't have a huge part in the whole story.
Well, except for one of the citizens in particular. What should I say her name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Yuki, a little white cat that seems to play a big role in the entire fold out of this story. I think she was seen in a flashback scene during the movie, right?
Yes.
Yes.
There's quite a few connections within the film too, and even though it's a very short film, there's a lot of different little nitpicky things that you do have to notice that will play a bigger part in the story overall. And I think that's probably the best way of doing storytelling, is when you have all of these different characters that are just little cogs in the wheel that makes the whole story turn and move forward.
What about our main heroine, Haru? What can we say about her?
Haru. Typical high schooler, but at the same time, there's something intriguing about her that makes her not just your atypical high school girl that wants to go after the boy that she really likes in school, wants to try and do everything that any normal girl would want to do. No, she wants to kind of move through life as is, but just can't seem to catch a break. And that's kind of how the story goes, but the message behind what Haru does as a character is quite powerful and moving. I can't say what it is because it would just ruin the whole magic of the whole story. So you would kind of have to see it for yourself.
Alright, what about the big chubby cat, Muta?
Oh my
Muta.
gosh, Muta!
Oh, I love Muta. Oh, I love Muta. He's the bread and butter of the humor.
Basically, he's always the target of the fat jokes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even if it's not that, there's so many other great comedies about it too, and I think that's kind of why I love his character the most out of everyone in the story, is that even though he's not necessarily the main protagonist, he has all of these different quotes that make it memorable and also make it quite grounded as a story, because you keep seeing all these magical and fantastical things, and here's Muta to add sort of the foil to everything that seems so bright and happy. And I think that's a wonderful balance when you do that from the writing standpoint. And I think the music is okay, but I think what really shines sound-wise is probably the voice acting. Like I mentioned at the very beginning, I love all of these performances. Peter Boyle, rest his soul, playing Muta is pretty much the highlight of the whole show. Carrie Elwes as the Baron, love it to pieces. And of course, we can't stop ranting and raving about Tim Curry.
So I think we've talked about almost all the characters that had most of the scenes in the movie, right? Okay, what about the good points? What was some of the best things about the movie?
I think I've already said all of the good points.
I think Poetry Ninja said most all of the good points in this film.
Well then, any bad points? Anything that could be improved?
I'm thinking from a sound perspective, I think the music could have improved a bit more.
Yeah, it felt a little bit too much like music that's already been done by Studio Ghibli, and it just didn't really add much to the show. In fact, at some points it was almost non-existent, which sometimes works for shows where you don't have music for certain important scenes of dialogue and it works effectively. But in this particular notion, it doesn't really feel right. It feels like it needs something more. But the score for it just doesn't really resonate very well, and I think that's the only thing that I would probably improve from the film. Animation is okay. The watercolor palette kind of works with this magic, but yeah, it's the music that kind of needs something more, but it's almost like a small little thing. Everything else kind of outweighs it.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I did like how some of the cats were in costumes and stuff, but one group I felt was kind of stereotypical was the group of cats that were dressed up like Egyptian pharaohs.
Oh.
Oh, those cats.
Oh yes, that
Oh, no, that
particular
just seemed a bit
scene.
too big of a stereotype for cats in my case.
Well, that's because in ancient Egyptian culture, cats are a huge deal.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And there's a plethora of other religions and mythologies within the world and within human history that portray cats in very different ways.
I don't know. If they actually showed a moving cat that was all big and white holding a gold coin, that would have pushed me over the edge.
Okay.
Yeah, that would have been a little bit much.
That would have been a little too much, and I think that would have been a little disrespectful to the Japanese culture.
Big
But
time.
then again, when it's made by a Japanese company,
True.
how is it offensive?
I'm just glad they didn't try to go over the top with cat stereotypes in the movie, because I mean there are some references that make it seem like cats, but all I can say is that I did like the costumes at least for some of the cats.
Mm-hmm.
Although I think they could have tried making the king cat more like a king. All they do is just keep a jewel in his forehead and he had really long hair.
Well, just being a king doesn't necessarily mean that you have to rule over armies and have a queen and a prince. Kings aren't necessarily your stereotypical format.
What do you call
comes
the
to
soldier
films.
cats that were dyed in army coloring?
The fact that you also have to keep in mind that, yes, all of those things do exist for what you stereotypically see for a king. There's always a royal guard and there's always some sort of next of kin. And if you're lucky enough, you might have a significant other that would be a queen. But kings don't necessarily operate as, I rule with an iron fist, welcome to my kingdom. No, not every king is created equal, as we can see in some other forms of film and television, like Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, the list goes on and on.
I at least liked how the guards serving under the prince cat looked. They always kind of seemed like the attire most guards would be for having a prince. They kind of had a regalness about them, although it kind of reminded me of those like toy soldier type things, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
I do enjoy the costuming for a lot of the different characters in this show. I think my personal favorite is probably the security guards, where it's like a black attire with a tie. It's adorable.
Yeah, what's that type of cat again? Calico? Or something like that?
Yeah, it could be a calico.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many different breeds of cat, which is not my forte per se, but it's really hard to narrow down exactly what breed of cat each cat is in the show. Unless, of course, you're a cat expert and you're watching through and going, oh, that's a calico. Oh, that's a Siamese. Oh, that's a tabby.
Still, what about that one scene where they were in the middle of the night and they were coming down the highway? For a second there, it looked like the parade of 100 demons, but instead they used cats.
Oh my goodness.
It could also go back to the original Japanese Shinto mythologies of foxes moving through as sort of gatherers within a festival, but there's too much to read into when it comes to something like that.
Yeah.
I think the point is that it was a royal guard, and starting out like that, yes, it seemed a little ominous, but at the same time, when you see that it's a bunch of cats, you sort of ease into it a little bit.
Well, if nothing else, then I guess scoring?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I already have my scoring on it. I give it 5 paws out of 5.
I give this 5 barons out of 5.
I'll just stick with a regular 5 out of 5, I guess. So,
Wow.
15
Perfect
on 50.
score.
but let's be honest, that's only because I think we've only got 3 people, but a score is a score.
Yeah, I think overall though, from when we were watching it, we were just having a total blast while watching it. So overall, I could probably say that even if it's not totally a perfect score from everyone that was here, it's still A plus, if not just solid A.
On an off-topic note, what's our current record for how many perfect scores, ratings we've gotten in a row?
I would say maybe 5 or 6.
Well, let's hope we can break the record this semester.
Ooh, we could.
I
do
sense a
that.
challenge coming on. Well, that's it for us for now. Of course, I won't be leading this next time, but stay tuned next week for our next exciting review of
Whatever anime series is voted.
Yeah,
Yes.
we'll see what the polls say on Facebook. But until then, this is the Anime Club signing out.